Yeah, we just pulling up to the farmer's market. This is the saddest day of the year, the day the farmer's market ends. And we got the homeless line right here. People are suffering on one side of this and people trying to get their food on the other side. I guess we all in the same boat. But the farmer's market's been operating underneath this bridge for decades. And it's one of the flyest farmers markets you can find. Amazing produce, local stuff, beautiful folks. A lot of my peeps come out every week and do this thing. A lot of parking, easy to get to. Right downtown in the heart of Baltimore. Urban, beautiful existence. So, you know, you don't find this in every city. It's an amazing thing. Baltimore is a strange town. Lots of amazing things, lots of really tragic things. But we'll catch up with you in a minute when we get to the farmer's market. Right here is the Baltimore Sun, one of the dying dinosaurs of the 21st century, the newspaper. I used to work there on the 5th floor many years ago, giving away their money. Now they ain't got no money to give away.
It's not precise. It's straight like.
My first stop at the farmer's market is always the coffee spot, so gotta get that cup of joe. You have to come out early to get the decent stuff. Otherwise it's all gone, and being the last day of the farmer's market, it's probably going to be a little scarce and slim, but you know, we'll see what we find. You too, baby. Take care. I'll get it on the way out.
Right.
I just have 20. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, get you on the way out.
Okay, man. Peace and blessings.
Take lime butter and then apricot jalapeno.
Apricot jalapeno. Which one's that? Last day, huh?
Yeah, you can always find us from the way
Later on the outside.
Yeah,
Okay. Good. Check the glass out on the way out. Okay. Peace and blessings. Yeah, it sucks. This is the worst thing. I'll probably see you home. Need some coffee? Zeke's is locally produced coffee. They roast the beans right here in Baltimore City. Amazing cup of coffee. You can get it at a lot of those different restaurants, coffee shops, etc. The line to Zeke's coffee is worth the wait. Need a small decaf.
Where do you guys go bowling? Okay. See you. Have a nice holiday. Okay, sounds good.
Stuff is birds. Oh, okay. got that.
I say ripe enough, not really ripe. These are the biggest jab in the box.
Let's call it 3 today.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Uh-huh. Have a good
Peace
one.
and blessings. Happy
You
holidays.
too. Merry Christmas. And a healthy hibernation. That's what I've been telling
That's
people.
exactly what I need to do. Take care,
Bye.
sweetie. All 4? That's their own veg. Ah, you want one? They look fabulous.
That's all we have now.
You got that? I can tell you. Okay. And look at that thing of beauty. Excellent. Let's eat it. Is this me or is that you? Everybody's good. Granddad.
Your granddad, I heard that was happening.
Yeah. Had a boy named yesterday. He's cute as hell.
Power piece.
Look here on the left, the Maryland Institute College of Art. That's where I went to school. New building there. The Brown Center, funded by Eddie Brown. There's an old white building in the back. Time for a quick stop at Whole Foods. Ooh. Ah, monkey business. Monkey business. That's why they call it monkey business. Let's see. Where's mine? Let me grab one of these. So this is Seth. He's the best wine merchant in the world. Knows so much. Does beautiful stuff.
I don't know about all that.
He also happens to be helping out on the project, the bench project.
So you're filming all day?
All day. Okay, brother. Peace and blessings. Happy holidays.
Enjoy it.
Yes, indeed. I'll see you, I'm sure, twice, 3 times before the end of the week.
So, take care.
What's going on, my brother? Judah. I ain't seen you in forever, man. How you been? Blessings. Excellent. It's good to see you, brother.
You too, bro.
Peace and blessings.
Still,
Yeah, man.
every Sunday, Club Select, 4:15.
Club Select?
Yeah.
Where's that, man?
Right between Mulberry and Franklin.
Okay, beautiful. Okay.
Every Sunday, 7 to 11.
Excellent, man. I'll check you out. coconut milk. Let's hit that. Yeah. Excellent. Oh, dino kale. Watercress looks good. Yeah, I always pull from the back because, you know, when they stock from the back to the front. So you see this looks like this, and up front looks like this. So you get your choice. Make my little bed so we don't use up 100 bags. There we go. Ooch. Spinach. If they have any basil. Wrong time of year, but it would be great. No, go ahead, sweetie. Okay. Let me check out the fish real quick, see what we got going here. That's nice. Let's see what they got over here. What's up? Good. How are you? You?
I'm good.
Good. So, we gotta get some shopping done quick.
Okay.
And then head back to the spot.
What are you making?
I think I'm gonna make a tomato with incrustation and shrimp and just all kinds of stuff like that. And we got this really ridiculous hybrid of, it's like a hybrid between broccoli and cauliflower that looks like it grew, right, it looks like it grew from another planet. So I'm gonna just see what that tastes like.
It's green,
right,
and it has the points on it.
Yeah.
And it's called, I forget the name of it, but yeah, it's delicious.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So have you made it?
Yeah.
You have made it?
I roasted it in the oven.
Ah.
Like a half of it.
Huh.
Just like roasted it in olive oil.
Okay, well, let's give that a shot.
I got a call from a gallery yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
In Chelsea.
Oh, like just like out of the blue from the art magazine?
I don't know.
Really?
This is my favorite.
Did you talk to him?
No, I haven't called him back yet.
You haven't called him back yet? How did you stop from doing that? You weren't a little
I
excited?
have to play hard to get.
Oh, that's so hard, huh? You're like, hello?
Yeah,
That's ridiculous. With raisins. This is my cooking coach. So, I want some flowers.
How you doing, Ryan? I'm good too, man. Beautiful to see you, man.
Yeah.
Everything good?
Everything's beautiful, man.
That's good, man.
So we'll see you soon, brother. Peace and blessing. How you doing, man?
Doing well.
Good to see you.
Right, take it easy.
You need some espresso?
Caffeination station.
So what else been going on?
That's it.
That's it. You just been thinking about that
I've been
24/7.
pontificating on that for 24 hours. Like, it's been pretty
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
And they got it out
you know
in the
who they are?
magazine?
You know huh?
Yeah,
I don't
who
know.
they are. Yeah.
I don't know how they. I don't know.
I bet.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's so hot.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yes.
girl.
Yes. Okay.
That's amazing.
So anyway,
It's blowing up here
a little bit at a time.
just a little bit. How you feeling?
I'm good. I got my first batch of supplements. Yeah. I'm
ahead.
planning the fundraiser for March to raise money for my treatment. The I Heart Amy Anti-Heart Transplant fundraiser.
Well, maybe we can incorporate that because we're going to be doing a fundraiser down there. Maybe we can build a little bit in extra
Where?
for that. We're going to do something at Goody. Yeah.
So I want like black tie. I want to have like high-end black tie.
You're gonna fly it out.
Yeah, secure donations and things like that. I just started trust fund and like all that kind of stuff.
Anything else?
But I just wanted to, the higher end, the more likely people are to come, I think, anyway. And the more likely they are to give money.
There's a balance, because
$50
sometimes,
ticket.
you know, because sometimes if the event is like super high end, then folk wonder where the money's going, how much vendors are paying for the event, even if it didn't cost you a cent. So you have to like hold this boundary in the middle so that it's classy enough that people feel like comfortable and fluid, and but that it doesn't feel so over the top that they feel like
well, it's not gonna be that over the top.
You see the bone? Yeah. Just a
Yes,
little bit.
absolutely.
Oh, how do you have the hookup with the... You want to sit here?
And my boy's done.
You sit here.
Since I'm working. 2 years later, we see her again. You know, we're too.
Kiss the chef. One.
Kiss the
Ooh, I got lots of
chef.
kisses.
Come to you.
Oh, the kiss line.
Oh.
Mmm. Ooh.
Oh, one at a time.
One at a time.
This is Ching first.
Ching. Kiss.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Oh, save the best for last.
Ching. And she's so humble. Mmm. Okay, so let's figure out what we're making today. Today was the last day of the year of the farmer's market, and there's I actually have a little sadness about that, but you know, you gotta have winter, you gotta have spring, you gotta have summer, and you gotta have fall. And so we went to the farmer's market this morning and picked up these amazing tomatoes. We got some kale. We got this thing. And I just had to buy it because it was the most stunning, weird thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never cooked one, so we may do something with that. And but these tomatoes are the end of the year tomatoes, and given it's the end of the year, they're not perfect. You know, we all end up going to the farmer's market or to the store, and we try and get the most perfect looking vegetables. That doesn't always yield the best product. Perfect is relative. For instance, in Japan, part of a concept that they have is about wabi-sabi. And wabi-sabi is actually about perfection that is based on imperfection. And beauty is not just about things that have only the perfect side showing, but beauty is also the side that actually is blemished, and it's that which gives us a sense of reality, and it's that which gives us a sense of a true, deep kind of beauty. And I think that's really a lot of the food direction that I come out of, is really trying to figure out what the ingredients want to do together. They want to talk to you, you want to talk to them, and I generally don't figure out what I'm going to be doing until it's cooking time, and now it's cooking time. So I have a general sense, but not a specific sense, and that's really the jazz of cooking. Okay, we're gonna start in on the roasting of our walnuts. I'm taking walnuts and pine nuts mixed here, and we're gonna roast these until they're nice and brown. What that gives them is a little extra crunch, some firmness. You know, you can start them in a raw pan. I like to use a little bit of canola oil. The canola gives it a buttery flavor. And then I like to come in with some real nice olive oil here. The olive oil gives it that kind of richness of flavor. We need to add a little bit of salt to this. I like to use sea salt. I don't use anything but sea salt in my cooking when we're talking salt. And I like to put a little heat in this part of the process. And so a little cayenne pepper in here to kind of heat this up just a little bit. And these you really just want to keep moving. so that you don't burn any part of it. They need to get nice and hot, and then they'll crisp up a little bit. You see the big chunky walnuts, and later on we'll be grating those. I've roasted some walnuts, and I'm going to make a crust that's going to go on top of the tomatoes with roasted walnuts and pine nuts. And so I have like the world's smallest kitchen, so I also use the world's smallest kitchen appliances. So we're gonna use this small processor and grind up the walnuts, grind up the pine nuts, and we're gonna introduce some other flavors and textures in that just feel right for today. So I'm gonna put the walnuts in, and put the pine nuts in. And we're not gonna grind these too much because we really want them to have that sort of crunch and bite. So I'm just gonna give them a little bit of a twist and let them be like that. Okay. The tomatoes. These tomatoes we're gonna want nice and thick, and the thickness on the tomato is to allow it to really cook through. Since these are not high summer tomatoes, I call these like ice tomatoes. They have a kind of icy texture to them. You wouldn't want to put them in a salad or in a sandwich, but they're beautiful for actually roasting, so that they hold up. If they're too soft, if they're too ripe, then they're not going to hold up under the cooking process. And I'm giving them about a ½ inch so that we actually will get some texture out of the tomato when we bite into it. This is inspired by a southern dish, and I believe that poverty is actually one of the most creative places. When you have little resources and you have to create things out of those resources, then you have to be creative. And so a lot of the food that comes out of the South, that comes out of my people's traditions, are foods that are almost discarded. So these tomatoes are perfect for that. And on the hill, in the mansion, these tomatoes would have been thrown out, but they can form the perfect base for this dish. So we're gonna actually trim up a bunch of these tomatoes. This one's probably a little too soft for this, so let's reach over to, this one's perfect. And I'm a jazz musician, and so I really approach the cooking process as a jazz process too, which means that you just have a base of an idea, and then you improvise. And I think that kind of jazz, the fact that jazz came from communities of poverty, is not an accident. It's because if you can't just afford to get exactly what's right, then you're gonna have to be creative and build things around. So we're beginning with these kind of products. The tomatoes are derived from an old southern dish, which is fried green tomatoes. We're not gonna fry them, but they use the green tomatoes because they have that substance. Okay, the next piece of work is we need to slice up, shave some cheese. This is actually an organic aged cheddar. And I actually love the cheddars because they have a substantial amount of bite, and they also melt beautifully, and so you can integrate them into the dishes. You can use them as a garnish, and you can see how flaky this one happens to be. And we're going to take advantage of that flakiness as we plate the dish later on. And we will also take advantage of the of the softness of this cheese. Even though it's firm, it still has a bit of softness, and we'll use that in the actual in the incrustation, as I like to say. So that's about all we need of that. I also love during my prep process to use a lot of bowls. I keep tons of little tiny containers. I find that it's really helpful with dealing with different cooking times. So, you know, I even will separate the scallions, the green part from the white part, as you'll see in a little bit. And I'll put those in two different bowls because they have different cooking times. The green part you want to just throw in at the end or it turns mushy, but the white part of a scallion you want to cook a little bit more. So let's actually get into the scallions now.
Can we take this opportunity to grab some
Sure,
cheese for snacking
come
for
on,
you?
come on. Right there.
Ladies like cheese. With
Ladies
their wine.
like
The ladies like cheese. Ladies love cool, Paul. LL Cool P.
Here's your jazz girl. Louis Jordan. Okay. So we have these scallions. These are actually very chubby scallions. Most scallions are a little thinner. I saw these, I said, let's go for the chubby scallions.
Chubby.
I live in the city, so a compost pile isn't really practical. And I also have a very shaded yard, and so I would love to be able to compost because I think, you know, we should do as much returning of the products to the planet as we possibly can. So I'm cutting these scallions all the way down to the part where they start to thin out, and then, as I said, I'll put those in a separate dish from the tops because we'll use those tops more at the garnish end.
That cheddar is delicioso.
That's really amazing,
It's
isn't it?
really sharp and tangy and nutty. Kind of like you.
Sharp, tangy, and nutty, huh? Okay, I'll take that. Now, since we have these out, I'll just prep these right here. I like to do the white ends fairly thin, but as we get to the green part, I like to give them some room to breathe so you actually experience the crunch and viability of the top half of the scallion.
Italian scallion.
The Italian scallion. I've also noticed, you know, it's been a challenging couple of years economically for a lot of people, and so I like to eat well, but I don't have a budget. I work for myself. It's been tough for a couple of years, so when you get that kind of dip in your ability to purchase things, you have to get creative, and I love good ingredients. So I noticed that if you buy the shrimp with the shell still on, they cost a lot less because you have to do this little tiny bit of labor, which is nothing. It takes a second to do that. So just separating the shell. And if you actually finesse this, you can roll back that outer shell with the legs still attached. And then if you pull right from the base here, you get the whole shrimp out of the shell stays intact, you don't have all these little pieces everywhere, and you save yourself a lot of money. Okay, so for this dish, we actually need the white separated from the yolk. Yeah, go ahead now. You know, you can put some rhythm in your separating of your eggs too, you know. The Isley Brothers is spectacular for egg separating. So the shell actually provides the best tool available for separating eggs. And I'm gonna just leave that yolk in the shell because it's a safe place for it. We're gonna actually need the yolk in its full form in a minute, so I'm gonna leave that in the shell so that it doesn't break open, because we really need it to be fully formed. More often than not, I like to leave the shrimp whole because they're so beautiful. But for this particular preparation, we're gonna do 2 different styles of shrimp. So I'm gonna take some of the shrimp and identify which one are the most beautiful to leave for the plating. And then there's some that have the little tail end off, like this, a little bit broken, and we'll use those for chopping for a piece of the topping on top of the tomatoes. And I'm just really making nice chunky pieces of this. I'm not trying to dice it so it's so small that it's unrecognizable. I found that if you line a broiler pan with tin foil, it makes you clean up a whole lot easier. So we're just gonna take our tomatoes and put them on the broiler pan. We are experiencing some wine theft. And so I'm going to take our topping, which has been made with grated cheese, olive oil, some spices, the walnuts, and the pine nuts, roasted as you've seen. I'm going to add a little bit more cheese into this because it feels just a little dry. If you see this, it should feel a little moist with the amount of cheese in there. That's going to give it that kind of bite that you need from the cheese, and it's also going to adhere nicely to the top of the tomato when we broil it. So I'm going to put the topping right on, and it's fine if it spills over. We'll actually use some of the spillage for the plating and really show the process of the piece in the plating. Okay, and then we will pop this into the oven. Okay, so cilantro is one of my staples. I love cilantro. Some people hate cilantro. I hear there's actually 10% of the population that have a reaction to it that makes the taste change. But what we're going to do is we're going to make essentially a pesto using cilantro instead of basil. It's a very simple pesto, but since we're going to be grinding this up, we don't have to be so delicate about removing the leaves. So I've kind of developed this technique where I just shave the cilantro leaves off of the stems, and it saves you about an hour. We don't want a lot of stem in there, but a little bit is okay. And so we shave that, and then remove any overage of stem. So we got pieces like that. Just comb through, and you see, actually, you know, if you do this first step, you can actually go in and pick the leaves off because you're not really damaging the leaves when you scrape them. And so that gives us a nice body of cilantro, and we're going to put that in our processor here. And you know, we don't want to waste anything, so all of these leaves that are there go right in. Extra virgin olive oil, mixing that in. We don't need a ton of olive oil, but a good amount. And we're also going to put a little bit of our pine nuts in there. we're gonna have some of them in the actual incrustation, so that kind of brings those two pieces together. I also want to bring some garlic into this to kind of give us a little bite. I don't want a ton of garlic, but just enough to kind of light up that pesto. Smashing the garlic like that frees the outside shell very quickly, making that part of the process a lot more efficient. And you want to remove the tips of the garlic, that part that the stem comes out of. It's a little stemmy, so we'll take that, remove that, and you don't need to be precious about this because it's going to be going into the food processor. For some applications, you're going to want to cut the garlic in much more elegant shapes. I also love lime. I was in a grocery store and heard that lime is a salt substitute, and I found that that's exactly what I use it for. My stove works, my oven doesn't work, and so so you make do. And for me, creativity is not about having all the best of everything. It's doing the best of everything with all that you have. So, we work out what we need to work out. And you can cook anything anywhere. I heard this dude talking about cooking in his hotel room using an iron to make tostadas. So, you can make do. Okay, so this is the exciting part. We're gonna start. We wanna set the oven. My oven is broken. Haven't had an oven in, 2 years. And so Mom hooked me up with this beautiful unit right here, which is a convection oven. I love it. It's fabulous. I may not ever have an oven again. Who knows? So we're gonna hook that up at about 450. We want it nice and hot at first to get this crust going. We just slip it in. I like to use the convection setting at first, and then I'll back it down to a broil to get a nice crisp on the top of that piece. We also need to start our shrimp here, and so the shrimp is really a nice, this was a nice invention, another poor person's cooking device. I've created a double boiler here with the pot and just a Pyrex measuring cup. I don't measure anything. I really only use the Pyrex for that and rice. That's it. And so what we want to do is we're going to put our shrimp into the Pyrex here. And again, I don't really like to waste stuff, so we're going to use the white of the yolk, white of the egg in the shrimp. Just a little touch there. Okay, so we have in here our shrimp, and we have some egg whites, and we're double boiling this. We're going to add in our pesto. Good bit of pesto. This really brings the flavor to the dish. And this, again, is a cilantro-based pesto with garlic. We also want to work our scallions into this. So we're using the larger white side of the scallions here, which is going to get nicely mixed into that. And then this we actually need to keep moving so that the egg doesn't settle and lump up. But you can see already the shrimp is starting to take on some color. Since it's in a double boiler, you don't have to worry too much about burning. but we're gonna let that start working over there. Great. So we're just checking in on our tomatoes. They're starting to soften up just a little bit. The crust is starting to get good. I'm gonna back down the heat just a touch so that the tomato gets fully roasted. Okay, I have added a little bit more egg white to this. The egg white, as it thickens, is going to give us the body we need for this to get on the top of the tomatoes. And it's really starting to set up nice. I'm going to let that go for a little while and really firm up a little bit. And then we're going to add that to the top of the tomatoes. Okay.
Ooh, smells good.
Okay, as you see, we're gonna double stack these tomatoes and get ready for our plating. We want to put the larger tomato on the bottom. Give it a nice bit of room. We're also going to introduce our other shrimp at this point. I'm going to put them in the back so that they begin to roast too with the other tomato parts as they're cooking. And we're now ready to add our shrimp with cilantro pesto onto the top of this. It's okay if some falls off. It's you know, this is you got to be really concerned when you're plating, but as you're building, you know, it all gets cooked and we can use whatever's on the outside as decoration. It's part of that wabi-sabi notion where the beauty is in the perfection and the imperfection. Okay, so you can see even as I'm working this dish, the shrimp is starting to cook in the back. I'm going to make a little dip in the top of this, which is going to be the container for our egg yolk, which will top this dish. And that's really important because in making this, it's really easy for the egg yolk to slide off of the side, and you really don't want that with this dish. The egg yolk is really the pièce de résistance of this dish. So I have my yolks here. And you always want to make a couple of extras of the yolks because you never know what's going to happen in this process. But simply, we want to slide the yolk right into this pocket so it sits nicely right in there like that. That's perfect. We've got another opportunity to do this. So you slide that yolk right in. There it is. And then we put this dish back in, and we're just really trying to firm up the yolk a little bit and get the whole thing working. At this point, I'm going to introduce a little more cheese to the top of this. And you don't want to totally isolate cover up that yolk because that's really our picturesque part. I'm going to put this back in for another minute, give it a little more heat, and let that just set in.
It's the NC.
Perfect.
You need to get something with a little more fruit.
Okay, we are ready.
That's what I was saying. Hers,
Okay, ready to plate. And plating in this case is just a matter of making sure you convey this object to the plate without leaving anything that you don't want on the plate. I have this nice big wooden spatula which helps with this. You see that egg has that nice luscious look on it. We're gonna get this shrimp working in here. I also want to heat up the top of this a little bit with some jalapeno pepper and some habanero. So slicing very thin slices of that we can just lay on there. If one falls, that's all right. It's all beauty. A few more for the other one. And the habanero is a very solid kind of spicy pepper. You want to really just lick the top of this with the habanero. And habanero has a really lovely shape, so you want to cut it until you get to that shape. And then just a couple of those. And we're going to garnish with a little cheese, this crunched cheese. And this is really just letting this fall where it falls. We also want to hit it with some of our scallions. And we're going to finish the top off with a little bit of grated cheddar. And we have some walnuts that we roasted just around the plate throughout. It's got pine nuts in it too. Same thing we used for creating our incrustation. And we have some arugula and some baby spinach to just give it a nice little touch. You don't need too much, and balance is you don't need to have everything equal in balance. It's really nice to sort of let the plate breathe and let us hit with a little bit of cilantro on the top, and then we're ready to go.
Finish plating, you should dig
Talk
right
about-
into that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you should just go for it. Like, take a bite and be like, I taste this, I taste that. There's a balance of this, there's a balance of that. This is good.
Well, you all are gonna do that.
Well, yeah, but you should do it as well. Don't you think? That's what they do on TV.
Okay, so let's serve this up and see what the ladies think.
Whoa!
Lady Day wants to come in.
Now that is a thing of beauty.
Look at the way that egg is going. See
Oh
that?
yeah. Ooh, that's sexy.
Stuff right
That's
there.
what you want. You want
Some oozing.
I just saw that burst.
We saw that.
Okay.
Give me some of that. Give me.
Looks so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
My man.
Wait, you don't want to not have no shrimp in there.
Green on there.
There you go. Get some green on there. Get your vitamins.
Okay, hold. Shrimp. Wait. Do I want a nut?
Have a nut.
Do I want
doubt it.
Delicious.
Just cheers to Paulo, a beautiful human being.
Thank you.
Unbelievable food.
And new friends.
We love life.
Oh my god.
Are we gonna dig in or what?